Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Courtside Soundoff podcast. Once again, I'm Josh Evanoff. As always, welcome by the one and only man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, future Jiu-Jitsu world champion, Angel Ortega. There's a lot of stuff to talk about this week, boys. UFC Singapore, UFC France, a whole bunch of news. As always, you're brought to you by two fantastic sponsors of the show, Rogue Energy and ELYXR. Rogue Energy, keep me fueled up, keep me going through my day, whether I'm at the gym or at home, and they can help you as well with code SOUNDOFF for 10% off at checkout. Meanwhile, ELYXR, the exact opposite. They're going to get you really high with their Delta 8, 9, 10 HHC products. And again, code SOUNDOFF, 10% off. They've got vapes, joints, gels. They've got it all. And you can get it all with code SOUNDOFF for 10% off. Again, Rogue Energy and ELYXR, code SOUNDOFF. Angel, last Saturday morning from the Singapore Indoor Stadium, featherweights in the main event, Max Holloway, Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. We knew the story going in. Two legends of the game for the Korean Zombie, likely going to be his last dance. In the end, it was an absolute banger from the word go. Chan Sung Jung said, hey, look, it's either going to be you or me. And ended up being him, but it was a banger of a fight. Both traded big shots. He rocked Max at one point. Ends up being blessed to get the third round knockout win. Korean Zombie retires post-fight. Just an incredible scene. What do you think about the fight and the win, and ultimately the retirement of the Korean Zombie?
I mean, we knew this fight from the get-go was to be a retirement fight. Look, retirements are never happy to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. It's weird. It was a happy and sad moment rather than just a sad moment that we've had a lot regularly in retirement fights, because from the moment he walked out, hype. Mm-hmm. Hype as fuck. And then the fight itself, oh God, I don't know why.
Oh God, he's dying. Angel, introduce yourself. He's gonna die.
I don't know why, but my throat just like hella dried up.
Courtside Soundoff episode. Fucking 2:30. Angel Ortega dies.
Dude, this is gonna go viral, like the video with you reacting to the fucking guy putting the spider in his house with the flamethrower.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just burning or trying to burn it alive.
Yeah, anyways, what Angel was saying was really that.
No, but I think I'm good now. What the fuck? Like, my throat just dried up hella hard right there.
No other show, folks. No other show. All right, carry on.
This is actually the final episode of the Courtside Soundoff. But like I said, from the moment he walked out, it was kind of a nice moment. Like it wasn't sad. And the fight itself, entertaining. I think Zombie had his moments. Obviously, Max shined through, and he ended up getting a finish. It had been quite a while since he got a finish. I can't remember what was the last time. They said it on the broadcast, but it had been quite some time. I think maybe was it 2016? 2017? It's been quite a while.
I believe his last stoppage win was against Brian Ortega in 2018.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't as long as I thought. But it's still been a while. Regardless, though, another happy moment for Max is he also gets to finish one after not having one in a while. And then everything kind of ends, and the Zombie gets to have his moment. You know, the commentary didn't have to add a lot to it. The crowd did everything. They played the Zombie music as he's leaving, and he exited with a smile. It was just the perfect kind of scenario outside of him not getting the win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and look, I mean, like you mentioned, it was a knockout loss, but it was about as good as it could go. I mean, this was a Korean Zombie fight. You know what I mean? And I feel like for his last couple fights, the Korean Zombie hasn't looked like a Korean Zombie. And that's partially why going into this one, we weren't really that excited because kind of figured the way it would go. But look, dude, he kind of knew, like, I had one left in me, and he went out there and he gave it his all. And he came up short, but it was an incredible scene. Obviously, the crowd singing his song, singing Zombie by the Cranberries after he left, you know, just embracing his wife. It was about as good of a retirement that you could have without getting a win. I don't think it could have possibly have gone any better. And for the Korean Zombie, I mean, what a career. I mean, from the WEC to the UFC, multiple title shots, incredible wins. Obviously, fight of the year with Dustin Poirier back in 2012. You know, incredible destruction of Frankie Edgar back in 2019 in Korea that I remember. I mean, he had so many great moments. This will be the last time we discuss him. What is your favorite moment from the Korean Zombie?
Fuck. There's some, I mean, the Twister is one that, like, I feel like a lot of people would pick, right?
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, the sad part for me, though, Josh, I didn't get to be there for a lot of them. I got to be there for when he came back post-military return.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if I had to pick one of those, the Hinata Moicano one did. And look, and that win has aged incredibly well since then, by the way. I know Moicano's fighting at 155 these days, but one that I got to see was definitely that one in recent time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Con, you're correct that, like, he kind of came in more in the tail end of his career, and like you mentioned, that kind of military, the military service took years out of his career, which was just an absolute shame. For me, I'd probably say my favorite Korean Zombie moment, like I said, I mentioned a couple of them. I'm actually going to say the Dennis Bermudez win, because that was over 4 years out of, I mean, and like, it's so rare to come back after like a long hiatus like that. But that's what he did, man. I mean, 4 years off, coming back to face a dog in Dennis Bermudez, who I remember correctly was like riding a really good win streak, and he just knocked him out in like, I don't know, like 40 seconds or something. Just ridiculous. I mean, just an absurd win. And that was his first fight in 4 years after the military stuff, after the loss to Aldo. That was probably one of my favorite Korean Zombie moment. I still remember the roar of the crowd. Like, it was fucking insane. But, sticking with the main event, to kind of look at it from the alternate angle, what do you think could be next for Max Holloway? Obviously, we know the story here, second win in a row. It has lost Alexander Volkanovski 3 times. Granted, you know, the first 2 fights were close, which everybody on the planet has forgotten. But still, he's won 4 of his last 5. He's not going to get a title shot. Who do you think makes sense for him next?
Dude, I don't know if there's a correct answer. Mm-hmm. And I think that actually might be the best genuine way to put it. And look, I feel like the only fight you could give him, and we already had some discussions about this off air, but even then, you don't even have to give him this fight, is Ilia Topuria. Mm-hmm. Unless you want to give him Josh Emmett, which to me that doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not really interested in any of the rematches between Yair and Brian Ortega at this time. Like I said, I would really like to see those guys try to fight again, because I think it's a perfect time for those two to fight because of the scenario that they're in. Yair coming off a championship loss, Brian coming back from obviously his injury and kind of getting a shot back at that guy. It'd be like the perfect time for those guys to fight, so that's why I wouldn't want to see a matchup yet again against those guys, even though I think a fight against either one of those could be really fun. But I genuinely believe this, Josh. I don't think there is a true correct answer, if I'm being blatantly honest. I feel like if you're going kind of I don't even think it's necessarily a cop-out, but I think maybe a move to 155. But even then, that doesn't even really interest me a lot. And unless Max is going to fight way down and fight a guy like Movsar, you know, I mean, that'd probably be like the only other thing, but I don't even see that as a possibility at this time. I don't think they would do that matchup for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, like you mentioned, there's not very many good options. I mean, Movsar, I don't think it's necessarily there. I don't think a Yair fight makes sense right now. We talked about this a little bit in the green room too. I said maybe Brian Ortega, but probably not, you know. It's been a couple of years since they fought, but probably not. Arnold Allen, no, just happened. I mean, there's a lot of names. I mean, in terms of who I want to see him fight next, I would love it, like a Topuria fight. I just don't think that's what makes sense. Given that he's probably going to fight for the belt. Maybe Josh Emmett. You know what? Josh Emmett said his next fight's probably going to be a retirement fight. We could just have Max Holloway retire all the old.
Just retire all these guys. That'd be fucked up. Could you imagine?
Well, shit, dude. I mean, Korean Zombie, he's already done one.
Max did a fight. Edson Barbosa too, man.
Oh god. Shit, dude. Probably. Yeah. I mean, Max. Maybe Max Giga. There's not many things that make sense, man. So it sucks for Max, but I think maybe you should look at potentially doing a fun fight, maybe a lightweight. I don't even know who he would face, but you know, maybe he could get creative.
Dustin. I feel like Dustin's the only one that makes like a lot of sense just because he has some history.
Yeah, and it'd be a trilogy fight. So they're both not booked, so who knows? That being said, I do think it's about time to move on to the co-main event because this fight was much better than I expected. We talked a lot of shit about it, so it only made sense that it was pretty entertaining. Anthony Smith picks up a split decision win over Ryan Spann. Anthony, I thought, looked really good early, but once again, the story, he gets rocked. He survives. This is a very controversial decision win for Lionheart. How would you score it, and what did you think about his performance?
So, at the time, when I watched the fight live, I did think the third round ended up being close. But in that moment, I thought it was a close Ryan Spann win. I wasn't like super up in arms about it. I will say when I heard Anthony Smith, I was a little bit in shock. But I do think it was a closer fight than people think. And funny enough, Josh, I didn't even know this after the fact. The biggest strike differential, and granted, quality strikes is a different story. The biggest strike differential was actually in the third round with Anthony Smith. He threw a lot of leg kicks out there. He threw a fair bit on the hands too. And I think funny enough, the leg kicks that he threw ended up being like that slight bit that got him over. Ryan Spann obviously disappointed afterwards, but all I gotta say, Josh, is I feel like I think no matter what, I feel like this was kind of how do I put it? Anthony Smith lucked out, and Ryan Spann didn't capitalize. That's exactly what I want. That's exactly how I want to word it. Ryan Spann didn't capitalize on this one, which one it would have been him getting a win back. Obviously ending his loss. I think he just lost his last one. And on top of that, potentially getting a finish over the guy who finished him as well. I feel like he just kind of left it out there. Like he should have really gone for it and taken the Anthony Smith out there. I feel like he inherently kind of put himself in this position. And look, easier said than done. Anthony Smith was still throwing with power and vigor,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like this is a fight that Ryan Spann just kind of let slip away, man. I mean, admittedly I scored the fight for Smith, rounds 1 and 3. If he gave round 3 to Spann, I wouldn't have had an issue with it. Obviously took round 2 when he re-hurt him. But yeah, look, dude, I just thought he let someone slip away. I mean, Anthony Smith was hurt bad in that third round, and Ryan Spann just let him off the hook, man. I mean, he had him rocked. He was badly hurt. I thought the fight maybe even get stopped because of how bad Anthony Smith's eye was. But they let it go, and he was the more busy man. He landed the leg kicks, like you mentioned. Spann was throwing the bigger shots, but he was lifting more. I thought it was a fine decision, man. I mean, I didn't think it was that controversial. If you would have given Ryan Spann, I wouldn't have had an issue. But for Anthony Smith, dude, I do gotta say, 55 fights now, and obviously it was a big win to get back in the win column for him. He's getting rocked in just about every fight now. Are you a little bit concerned about his kind of recent last few? Because even with a big win here, I wasn't that impressed. I actually came out of it feeling more concerned than feeling good about his chances moving forward.
I mean, the guy has almost 60 pro fights, man. I mean, it was going to be a matter of time before we kind of started having these kind of thoughts in our mind anyways. And people it's funny, we didn't mention this in the main event, but people kind of brought up kind of a similar thing in the main event, which, I mean, we could double back to that here in a minute. We'll finish on Spann and Smith first. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a fact of life, man. It's probably, if you're competing and fighting the way he does at times and taking the damage he does and taking the risk he does, and granted, he didn't get that Lionheart, that Lionheart moniker just because, he earned it. I mean, yeah, I'm not surprised. Should we be concerned? I mean, dude, it's combat. I mean, no matter what, I mean, we should always be concerned to an extent, Look, no matter what, I thought Anthony Smith, after his last few years, has been on somewhat of a decline. It's just a little sad because you see that he has been evolving his game and trying to add to it through his last few fights. It's just kind of like the time and the durability is just against him now, and we won't get to see the best of all of that either.
Yeah, so I mean, you're not wrong. Like you mentioned, almost 60 pro fights, and this kind of thing happens, man. And I don't know. I came out of this fight just feeling kind of concerned, And Anthony Smith afterwards, he he even called out Alex Pereira, and they kind of had like a back and forth, and it's like, Anthony, like, man, like, I get it, but I guess I just wasn't that impressed. I mean, I'll admit, I thought that round one he actually looked pretty damn good. I thought he looked smooth out there. But again, getting rocked and taking a shit ton of damage, it's like, man, you kind of got to wonder about like post-career stuff at this point. Because I don't think he's going to win a title. He's 35, nearly 60 fights. And took a lot of damage against a guy that he previously, 2 years ago easily ran through.
And I mean, and kind of to argue it a little bit, I mean,
yeah.
You got to give credit to Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann's also made some improvements. He has that kind of power. You know what I mean? It's also, I'd say, to an extent, a matchup thing as well. I don't think it's all just that. But you're not wrong. I mean, there is definitely some sort of precedent there. Which it's funny that you're mentioning this because I felt like more people mentioned this for the main event rather than for this fight and I think it mainly because of the somewhat controversial decision, which wasn't really controversial at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because I heard people saying like, man, you can tell Max is on the decline, man. It's time to, I think Max should just have fun fights now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, come on, guys, you got to think about the kind of guy he was fighting, the kind of fight that guy was bringing. And like I said, I mentioned this as well in the Spann fight. It's all matchup dependent too. You got to think about the way these guys are in their fights and what they put out there. Regardless, though, I do think that Anthony Smith is definitely getting to those twilight years of his career, whether or not he wants to admit it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of already breaking down, man. Like I already said earlier, like you see it. It's been two different kind of injuries in recent time, right? He's probably gonna have to take a decent bit of time again after this fight. It's just kind of and like I said, he's getting up in there in age. Recovery's just not the same anymore. Losing that weight isn't the same. Like, plus that he has a bright future outside of competing. He has nothing left to prove. He fought for a title. He beat Gustafsson. He's beat some legends. He's one of the most entertaining guys at 205, I think, that you could ever watch. And a very intelligent guy who articulates well, who does great analysis and puts out good thoughts. So, no matter whatever he decides to do, I think we'll be fine with it. I think the big thing is we just don't want to see Anthony Smith getting blasted out of there. And definitely the way Anthony Smith is, I feel like he could be hard-headed to make step away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you mentioned, it could be matchup dependent. Ryan Spann is a huge hitter, so that is part of it. But let's see how he looks moving forward. This was kind of a big test fight, I thought, for Anthony to see where he's at as a contender. And I don't think he necessarily passed the flying colors, but we'll have to see how things go moving forward. Nonetheless, man, in regards to the rest of the UFC Singapore card, which fights do you most want to talk about? There were a couple of very big wins.
Oh, man. I'm going to skip Giga. I'm going to go to my boy Rinya Nakamura, man. You see the potential. I call him the fucking hybrid for a reason, man.
Mm-hmm.
He is so quick on the ground. And not like explosive. Not just explosive, like legitimately moves quick on the ground. And like I said, he's already kind of shown potential on the feet by putting out a lot of guys. And this is a guy who started off as, he was a wrestler. That's his foundation, and has been able to put these guys out. And what I like that he said is, give me 3 years, and I'll promise you guys, I will fight for a title, or I'll be in title kind of contention or something, which is something that I really respected, because he just turned professional in 2021. I mean, I don't know how long he's been training MMA, but he just started his career in 2021 and already has, 8 bouts under his belt. And and it's funny, Josh, I said it last time. I mean, I was like, Josh, he is the Japanese Bo Nickel. He said it himself too. He said he's trying to be the Japanese Bo Nickel. So I'm kind of happy he kind of reiterated my comment there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's your boy, dude. I mean, that's literally what you said last week, so. Yeah, I mean, that was a big win by him. Very impressive. And we'll see what he does moving forward, dude. He really does have a shit ton of potential. But Angel, we both know who I'm going to shout out. We both know who it's on. Aaron Blanchard comes in, I talk about it every time, gets a huge win over Talia Santos, man. I mean, sky's the limit, dude. I mean, it goes out, and especially after a really bad first round. Like, for me, it's like, how, like, we've talked about, like, wanting to see certain things from fighters, like, I think the last two fights is really, because I've always been high on her, but it's these last two fights that I've really been like, okay, she's a future champ, you know? The Andrade fight where she kind of had a rough first round but turned things around to get the sub win over the former champ. And now facing Talia Santos, another young dog. We saw how good she was against Valentina Shevchenko, you know, and if she didn't break her orbital, who knows how things would have gone. And Talia Santos easily won that first round, but Erin Blanchfield comes back in the second and the third and just pulls that unanimous decision win. I do gotta ask though, I mean, we talked a lot about potentially, you know, Yan Xiaonan taking on, fighting for the title, against Wei Li. In regards to, obviously, it's gonna be different. And obviously different divisions, but I mean they have a situation now down to strawweight, where Yan Xiaonan seems like a clear title challenger, and she may not get the nod. What do you potentially think about? I think Erin Blanchfield very clearly deserves it, but then you have a Manon Fiorot Rose Namajunas fight happening, and there are other names. What do you think about potentially Erin Blanchfield fighting for the gold next?
Look, it's funny because I feel like, and I kind of processed this because we talked about this a little bit earlier. I think no matter what is going to happen, whatever happens in the Valentina or Grasso fight, and regardless of what happens, well, I'm not going to say that, but depending how the Rose fight goes, because I think the Rose fight is going to influence a lot. I don't think they're going to give it to Erin Blanchfield next. But I think if she gets one more, she'll be right there. Like they're not going to prevent her if she gets another big win. But just kind of seeing based off kind of like this little kind of mini tournament they unintentionally kind of have going, where they had Blanchfield and Santos and Manon and Rose, and funny enough, two gals who were showing a lot of potential right here. Mm-hmm. And then obviously we have the Grasso Shevchenko rematch. Like you kind of see that they're kind of trying to narrow down who's going to be next in line. But I just don't think – I feel like a lot of things are going to have to go a certain way for Blanchfield to get that opportunity, and I just don't think they're going to line up. Mm-hmm. Which I don't have an issue with because I don't know what it is, Josh. I recognize she's good, but there's always something I'm like a little unsure about with her. And no matter what, I mean, look, she's like, what, 24, 25?
Yeah, she's literally, I can pull it up. I think she's even younger than that. She's 23? Yeah, she's 24. Yeah, 24, excuse me.
And I'm like, she's already this good. I mean, I know no matter what, she's going to be there for it. So that's why I don't worry. I just feel like right now it's just like she's shining through, but I just don't think she has it all fully together for some reason. And granted, and you could always nitpick at all fighters and kind of like things that went on because like the Jessica Andrade went good, but at the same time you kind of see where Jessica's been in recent time. And like I said, you can do this with any fighter and their last few opponents. Talia Santos, first time back after being out for a while, but showed a lot of potential and talent. He could have arguably been champ. And obviously had the orbital thing, and then we saw her eye got injured again in this fight, or had a lot of swelling in that area. Regardless, I mean, she still came out and performed and did very well against all those gals who are completely elite. There's just something where I'm just a little, just like, I feel like just one more and I'll be convinced. Mm-hmm. Not because I need any more convincing, I just want her to have that fine tuning.
Yeah, and let me be clear here. Like, I brought up the Yan Xiaonan Wei Li Zhang situation to say, like, that's a clear fight that they should make. I don't think Erin Blanchfield is that clear, just because I think that's a special situation. But I do think she clearly deserves a title shot. But if that's the case that you're bringing up, I get it. You know what I mean? If you're like, I want to see her take one more. She's only 24. There is no harm in it. I get it from that standpoint. I think she obviously has earned it, ranked number 2 now, only behind Valentina Shevchenko.
And she's in the mix no matter what. Like, that's, yeah. I'm not, I mean, no matter what, she's in the mix.
Yeah, exactly. But it just kind of depends on the direction they want to go ahead and go. I wouldn't have a problem if they gave one more. Like you mentioned, it's kind of like something off. For me, it's like she takes a lot of damage when she doesn't need to. Her striking outside of her jab, she has a really nice jab, But outside of that, her striking's pretty iffy. So if you want to give her one more against like somebody like I don't even know who she would fight off the top of my head.
And she has a lot of good intangibles. Like she has good.
Yeah, that's her fight IQ is huge. It's very, very high.
It's not even. I don't even think it's necessarily fight IQ, Josh. She doesn't deviate from her game plan. You know what I mean? If there's something she wants to do, she'll keep doing it, and if not, I'm sure, obviously, I think that's where IQ comes into play. She'll make the change, but she's committed. She knows what she wants to do, which is already very good, especially for such a young fighter. And on top of that, like I said, her cardio is stellar, and she has shown a lot of toughness and a lot of willingness already against some very good gals who are older than her, have more experience than her, have fought some of the best already. And like I said, there's some little ripples there, but I'm saying, she's not that far from being like it, and it is kind of like, oh shit. I'm curious to see when it's gonna happen because I haven't seen that kind of switch yet. Mm-hmm. Because there's a moment where a fighter turns elite, Josh, where there's kind of this switch, and you're like, oh fuck. For Wei Li, I mean, what fight could I say when I noticed that for Wei Li? I mean, I can maybe point back to two different ones, but in different ways. I mean, this last performance for one, obviously the Expars are one too. Mm-hmm. Volk with Max and Zombie, even in Yair, but like I said, maybe there's sometimes like a specific one that you can kind of point to. For me, it was Charles versus Dustin. That was like, fuck, okay, this guy, he's doing good. He's gotten the wins. But even in the Dustin fight, I thought, like I said, I think I said it on the podcast at the time, I'm like, I feel like Dustin Poirier is the uncrowned king of 155. Well, he shut that shit down real quick.
Yeah.
So there's also that. And then this is another, Brandon Moreno when he beat Davison Figueiredo the second time around.
Mm-hmm.
Or not second, when he beat him the first time around to capture the title after the draw, where he just looked, I mean, it was a completely different showing than from the first fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, give a couple of examples there. I mean, ultimately for me, I'm unsure of what they will do next. I think Blanchfield is the winner of, and especially because that fight is so close. I thought they positioned this fight as like, okay, winner totally gets a title shot. But also at the same time, they also have like, the UFC France co-main event, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, also coming up. So, very, very busy at the top of women's 125 pounds. But dude, as far as the rest of the card goes, a couple of other big wins. Giga Chikadze stopped our boy Bruce Leroy, his momentum. Granted, suffered a broken hand, so that's part of it. But outside of that, what are the fights you most want to talk about, man?
Oh man! By the way, the terrifying finish. Waldo Cortez Acosta over Lucas Bresky. I think I highlighted this fight last week. Bro, the way he fell was so bad. I don't know if you saw that on Twitter, but that was a bad one. Another highlight finish. Michelle Olejniczak versus Chidi Jaquani. Oh man, I was so heartbroken about this one, man. Josh, I saw my boy Chidi was looking good, and then he got tagged, and that shit was not a hit. Broke my heart.
Yeah, that would suck to see. I mean, we're big, but hey, you were right though. You said that one's gonna end in a finish no matter what. So.
I mean, yeah, you're right there. You're not fucking wrong.
So you were correct in your assessment, dude. But yeah, that one sucked to see, and it's his third loss in a row. So I really hope they don't cut him. But I mean, they've done worse.
Like they kept Sam Alvey around, Josh. Come on, they got to.
That's Karate Combat's own Sam Alvey. I didn't include that in the rundown, but he just got signed. So good for Sam. But yeah, man, I mean, this is a pretty solid card. Junior Taffa picked up a big win. JJ Aldridge got a big stoppage win. It was a fun card. It was a fun card. Granted, it started at 4 a.m., but outside of that, what would you rate UFC Singapore on a scale of 1 to 10?
Over, just the main card or overall?
Let's just do overall. Why not?
Probably like 6.5.
That's fair. That's about what I'd put it.
Yeah, I mean, look, you had names, but there was nothing outside of the Aaron Blanchfield Taylor Santos fight. There wasn't a lot on the line, and that matters a lot to me in fights, Josh. I always bring this up, and even for stuff for fight of the year, I'm like, look, the fight can be great, but when there's something on the line on top of that, it makes it just that much better.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong. And this card really wasn't one of consequence, which is mainly the reason why they had it at 4 a.m.
I mean, and it was still a strong main card. Don't get me wrong. The main card was pretty entertaining. I'd say the Anthony Smith Giga fight kind of left you with a little bit wanting a little bit more there.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, I'd say the other 3 fights, or 4 fights, I mean, on the main card, provided very well. I know Junior Tava Perker Porter had a little bit of controversy with the cage grab.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, they're still bangers. I mean, Rinya Nakamura, dominant performance. Aaron Blanchfield keeps shining through. And then Max and Tafa both with finishes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I mean, you laid it all out there. It was an alright card. It was not that one. Not much of consequence happened, but, it's a fun one. And you know what, Angel? Hopefully this weekend's card will also be a fun one, because we got UFC France going down from Paris at the Accor Arena. In the main event, Ciryl Gane back roughly a year after the last UFC France card. Last time out, he picked up a knockout win over Taito Ivasa. He's coming back home, this time to face the rising Ciryl Gane, the polar bear, riding a 3-fight winning streak. 28 years old, he's just now hitting his prime, won 6 of his last 7, only loss is to Tom Aspinall. This is his big step up. Obviously, he beat Derek Lewis. He's beaten a couple other names like Greg Hardy, Alexei Oleinik, but this is his first real time facing somebody inside the top 5. What do you think about this fight, man?
Look, like I told you in the green room, I feel like this is the battle of recency bias. But if you take that out, I feel like the answers are more clear, is what I said to you. I'm kind of quoting myself exactly there.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, it's a very clear path. I mean, I'm picking Ciryl Gane, Josh. I think, look, we've seen the deficiencies in the wrestling department, but I did see that on his Instagram. He brought in a French judoka Olympian who got like silver at Rio. So you kind of, and granted it's judo, not wrestling, but you see that he's trying to add to the arsenal there. And on top of that, he's his stand-up ability. He's very mobile. He's willing to, he's going to move a lot. Sergey Spivak's going to have to come and stop him. Get him against the cage, get him down. I don't think like it's going to be easy to take down for Sergey Spivak. And Spivak going backwards is not the same fighter going forward. Spivak does very well when he's going forward, but not backwards. For Ciryl Gane doesn't mind being on the back foot and doing damage either. So, because he's one of the few guys who would probably hit while going backwards, which is not an easy thing. And if you let him come forwards, it's a done deal. I think Ciryl Gane's gonna get it, Josh. I think we'll kind of be like, okay, we kind of remember where we left off. And look, nothing against Sergey Spivak. His wins have been good. I think his ceiling is still very high. He's very young. He's 28 years old. He's a heavyweight. He has a lot of experience already. But, he did get that. He got to win over Derek Lewis, who we know isn't very good on the ground and was kind of on a loss streak there. Sakai, who had lost like 4 or 5 in a row before he won his last one. And Greg Hardy, who doesn't even participate in the UFC anymore. And before that, he had a loss to Tom Aspinall, who we've seen how good Tom Aspinall potentially could be. And then wins before that, no disrespect, not very impressive either. Jared Vanderoo, who's now fighting at 205 or middleweight, I think. Alexei Oleinik, who probably should retire. And then Carlos Felipe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. I'm kind of in agreement with you. I mean, look, I've really kind of gone back and forth on this, like a little bit. Stylistically, this UFC France main event, Sergey Spivak on the mat, very, very solid. And we've kind of seen if you can get Ciryl Gane to the mat, you're gonna be able to have some success against him. I mean, John Jones basically, in the words of Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, he basically sat on his chest for 90 seconds and he said, stop, daddy. That was the case of Ciryl Gane versus John Jones. And then the Ngannou fight, he got ragdolled by one-legged Ngannou. But in this case, man, I think Sergey Spivak, he's much slower than those guys. I don't think he has anything on the feet to pose those guys, like to pose in comparison to those guys, which is partially what led to the takedowns for Jones and obviously Ngannou. I don't think Sergey Spivak has much to pose on the feet. I don't think Ciryl Gane will be afraid of that. I also think he's going to be much faster. I think he's going to be able to be more light on the feet. And I also think he just knows that he needs a win. Like, if Ciryl Gane it won't end his UFC career, but he's already coming off one of the worst performances in the UFC title fight ever. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go ahead and take him to get the win here. I think he's going to rebound. And I think even if Sergey Spivak, even if he can get him down, I don't think he'll be able to stop him. You know what I mean? I have not been that impressed with a lot of his groundwork. Obviously, he submitted Derek Lewis, but outside of that, that's his only sub win in the UFC, save for a Taito Iwasa win. So,
would you be surprised if Spivak won here? Like, this is something that we haven't even, like, put out there, because, we're kind of,
I would not be surprised if Spivak won here. I would not actually be surprised. I just think,
I'd be in shock, though. Like, I really would be to an extent. Because that would really shake up the division. Like, I'd be like, oh, fuck. Okay. Like, that's a big win. Like, Beer Derek Lewis is a good win, but at the time he beat him, though, it kind of wasn't a surprise to an extent.
Yeah.
But if he beats Ciryl Gane here, Josh, I mean, there's some potential future title implications there. Maybe not, I wouldn't say right after this win, but, maybe one more big win, and he's right there. Granted, this is like a very like normal thing for heavyweight, man. You get like you beat one of the top 3 guys, or not even 3, 5, and then maybe one more. You're probably in line for a title.
Yeah, and look, dude, like I would be surprised if I would be kind of surprised if Sergey Spivak won, but I wouldn't be that shocked, man. I just think like stylistically, he has the ability to get it done. Like what he's good at is what Ciryl Gane is bad at, or not bad at, but can struggle with at times when facing top-level fighters. So, yeah, I mean, I would not be that shocked, but dude, you're right. It would completely shake things up. If he can come in here and get a win over Ciryl Gane, that would definitely shake things up. Dang, could you imagine John Jones, Sergey Spivak, dude? Like, are you down?
I mean, Josh, you were trying to convince me to believe a Brock Lesnar versus John
Jones. Brock Lesnar versus John Jones is like way more feasible. But
do you actually believe that? Holy fuck!
Probably, yeah. Because I think Brock could come back tomorrow and get a title shot. So
that's insane. Isn't that insane? Like that's even a possibility.
It is kind of insane, but it's not. It's like it's not that crazy though. I mean, UFC 300's coming up. They own the WWE now. I'm just saying. It'd be easy to get a deal.
Oh yeah, dude, we're about to get Ronda too. Ronda's gonna
we're gonna talk about that later though.
She's gonna fast track her pregnancy. They're gonna bring in Matt Riddle too.
Fast track her pregnancy.
They're gonna sign Jake Hager, aka Jack Swagger.
Jack Swagger.
They're gonna bring Fatal out of retirement for that fight. Like
Jesus Christ. Anyways, man, we should move down to the co-main event because, like we mentioned,
Stevenson with his MMA debut.
We should move on down to the co-main, because like I did mention, this is a big one down at women's strawweight. Rose Namajunas coming back for the first time since her loss to Carla Esparza last May. That was probably the worst UFC fight of all time. Taking on Manon Fiorot, 10-1, won 10 fights in a row. Only loss was to Liam McCourt back in 2018. Undefeated in the UFC, last defeated Caitlin Chookagian. Depending on how this fight goes, could potentially get a title shot, but obviously it's very dependent on how this fight goes, man. What do you think about this one, man? Obviously, Manon Fiorot looks very, very impressive, but Rose, whenever she's on, she's on. She's on.
Look, for me, this is the main event, for me personally. Like, and obviously the heavyweight fight is super exciting, super fun as well. But like I say, implications are everything, man. I mean, what's on the line here potentially, and if Manon gets a win over Rose, and obviously Rose coming up a weight class, I mean, there's a lot here. There's a lot of substance here. To generate some sort of entertainment for everybody. I mean, there's so much on the line for both these gals, I feel. And I mean, I've been a big Manon fan since ever she's come into UFC, ever since she made her debut. I like calling her the French Phenom. She is very talented on the feet. And early on in her career, there was some issues with the ground game. We haven't seen any of it yet in the UFC. I'm curious to see what kind of game plan Rose comes out with, and if she does decide to take this fight to the ground. And obviously, that's another big question. How is Rose going to look at this weight class with the added muscle? How is that going to affect her mobility? Or how much can it add to her game with maybe Rose will have a little bit more pop behind her hands and her punches, you know? I will say, though, and look, and predicting Rose fights are, like...
Impossible.
Because you don't know what Rose you're going to get. But I think she is focused. I do want to believe that. Because you saw she's dialed in, she's putting on the weight, she's trying to build up that muscle, and she wants to shake things up. I guess she felt like there was a need for it, or something, she needed to do something different. And I think this is a good matchup for her. I don't think it's catered necessarily to her, but depending how Manon looks on the ground, if the fight does go to the ground, we could see Rose have a lot of success. I do think Rose overall is a more complete and better mixed martial artist than Manon. Now, as a stand-up fighter, I might shock some people here. I think Manon might have a slight edge on the feet. Slight, not a lot. I think it'll be tight, it'll be close. I could be completely incorrect here. I think Rose could, but I could also see Rose completely putting on a stand-up masterclass. But, we'll see on that night. But I'm going to go Rose for this one, Josh. But I wouldn't be shocked if Manon won. It's only 3 rounds. Anything could happen.
Yeah, and that's exactly the reason why I am taking Manon for Rowe. I think there's too many unknowns with Rose Namajunas for me to feel good about this fight. She's admitted that she essentially was going to retire after the Carla fight. She considers herself retired, but she felt God calling to her in that she had more to do. And for me, that's not exactly a great reason to fight. So I'm gonna go ahead. Jokes aside, she looked terrible in the Carla fight. She's moving up a division. She's taking on somebody undefeated who's much bigger, been active. I just gotta take Manon for Rowe, especially 3 rounds. I think if this is 5 rounds, we haven't seen Manon take 5-round fights, so I'd be more hesitant. But in a 3-round fight with all the unknowns, come on, man, it's got to be Manon for Rowe all the way.
Look, to an extent, I'm on the same boat. I'm still going Rose, but I would feel like Rose is a lock for me if it is 5 rounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and look, dude, you're probably not wrong to pick Rose, because at her peak, she's absurdly good. The question is she at her peak? I don't think
this is a continuation of me finally picking a fighter after not picking him after so long, and them continuously fucking me.
it's gonna go immediately wrong.
Yeah, just like when I picked her with Carla after not picking her for I think any of her fights in recent time. I think I might have picked her for the rematch against Andrade, but yeah. Dude, I just wouldn't even be surprised if Rose just fucked me here again.
Yeah. Fair enough, man. Fair enough. As far as the rest of the card goes, it's not the deepest one, but there are a couple of high-profile names. Which fights are you most looking forward to on UFC France?
We've got to go one down. A banger that I never thought about. Saint Benoit. Is it Benoit or Benoit? How do you say it?
Benoit, I believe.
Saint Denis Benoit against Thiago Moises. A banger I've never thought about. Also, this was I feel like we didn't see this guy fight that long ago. Yeah, it's only been 2 months. Vlad Ismail Bonfim got to finish in the first round. And I feel like it's been a while since we've seen Thiago as well. Actually, it was at the start of this year when he beat, I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name, but I like him, Costa, in Brazil. Got to finish with him in the second round. Regardless, though, I think that's a fun matchup, potential banger there. Thiago Moises is a guy who I think, if he can improve some things, man, he can get back into the ranking and make some noise. He's once again, only 28 years old, young, fights out of American Top Team, has a great jiu-jitsu game. I thought gave Islam a relatively competitive fight, Took him to the 4th round. Didn't make it easy for him. A lot of scrambling in that. I think his ceiling is very high still and has a lot of potential. I don't know if he'll become UFC champion, but I think he could potentially put himself in the mix at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough, man. And, let's just go ahead and say that Benoit St. Denis Thiago Moises fight, in terms of, pure fights.
Fight of the night?
Maybe the best fight on the card. Yeah, straight up. Both of those guys are very entertaining. They're both riding win streaks, and Benoit St. Denis is just a great prospect. I've said that since his debut. He has a lot of potential. A young kid, still in his 20s. And his ability to rebound after suffering a loss in his UFC debut was very impressive to me. So I'm really looking forward to him coming back. The return of Volkan Oezdemir, Volkan Oezdemir. Looking forward to him coming back, taking on UFC newcomer Bogdan Guskov, who I believe 14-2 out of Russia, 30 years old. To see how he does in his debut.
By the way, all that guy's wins are almost. I think actually all his wins are finishes. I shit you not.
Yeah, they're really. Volkan also welcomed Yuri Prochazka to the UFC. So
I'll never forget that. I was at the gym, and dude, and I'll never forget. I was like, is he fucking with him? There was a little. It's not like he was. But I'm like, this guy's holding something back. And then he pulled Volkan out, bro, and I was like, I fucking knew it. I knew there was something there. I knew there was some heat somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, dude, he's definitely welcoming some high profile guys to the UFC. We'll see if Bogdan Guskov can have as good of a knockout win as Yuri did. Probably not, but
Doubtful.
Yeah, doubtful. As far as the rest of the card goes, man, they got the return of Reese McKee on here, former Hamzat opponent. Ferdy Basharat is back.
Banger.
Zara Farn dos Santos won women's 145. Never die, Angel.
It's listed at 140 here.
That is correct. It is not listed at 145. But Zara Farn dos Santos is one of the UFC's, I believe, few women's 145ers left. So
145, never die.
Exactly, 145, never die.
I just realized she's 39. She's going on 40 this year.
Yeah.
She's on a 3-fight losing streak. I mean, it's kind of like the perfect scenario if she loses here for them, right?
Yeah, they're really hoping she loses this one so they can just go ahead and cut her outright. Taking on Jacqueline Cavalcanti, 26 years old, fighting a bantamweight, 5-1. Previously suffered a loss on the PFL Challenger Series to Martrina Janajarova, who went on to fight in the PFL, I believe, not finale, but playoffs. So, yeah, I mean, she's we'll see if Zara Farn dos Santos can pick up a win over our girl, just Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Because we really got to see her coming back and then fight for the vacant women's 145 title, Angel. I mean, we're still waiting for the vacant title. I mean,
this card took some hits, man, but they managed to get 11 fights on it. I mean, at one point it was almost 10 fights, and I mean, shit, they still haven't weighed in, so it could potentially be less by fight day.
Yeah, correct. They did have a lot of canceled fights, man. This one was just brutal.
I think it's, who was it? I looked at it earlier. Is it Clayton? Yeah, Clayton Rodriguez actually missed weight 2 times recently. In his win over Shannon Ross, he missed weight. He came in at 127 rather than 126 or, the featherweight or flyweight limit. And then he was supposed to fight Tatsuo Taira 3 months ago. Same scenario, except he missed by even more this time. It was 100. He weighed in at 129. So kind of a little sketchy for the UFC there, right? Because he's already missed weight 2 times recently. They already lost. They're already short 1 fight of what they were going to be for this card. At one point it was 10, and there's still time to lose more. So UFC could get boned here.
They could. I got optimism though. I mean, I think they've kept it together. They somehow kept it together so far. So
I think I think they'll be fine too. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, but nonetheless, man, we do have some news we can go ahead and talk about. Because just last night, Angel, Dana White gave us an iconic rant against Aljamain Sterling and Merab Dvalishvili, outwardly asking him, why the fuck are you in this sport? Essentially, we're going over it again, over the potential title shot at 135 pounds. Merab came out, Aljamain and Merab have been consistent. They did say that, hey, Aljo deserves the title shot. If he's not going to get the title shot, then it has to be Merab. Dana doesn't seem intent on giving it to either one of them, and his reasoning was that these two don't plan to fight each other, and he went off on them following the Dana White Contender Series, which happened last night. Angel, I know you saw the rant. We disagreed on this a bit in the green room, but what did you think about the situation, man?
Like I said, I get both sides. I don't think it's just black or white. I think there is a gray area in there. But at the same time, and we've talked about this already in the past, right? But look, like I said, I mean, as far as Sean, they were never going to give him Merab, at least not now. And these guys made it clear they didn't want to fight each other. There was a plan laid out there. And pisses Dana off, but Dana knows these guys are cool. He knew this was all a possibility. And I mean, if he knew this was going to be, if there was even a potential of this outcome, I mean, not even Dana, but matchmakers or whoever's all in charge, agents, I feel like they could have maybe slowed down Merab's moving up the rankings to an extent. Granted, you can't really do that because if he's winning, well, you got to give him harder matchups, I don't know. It's a not so complicated situation that's being made complicated intentionally when it shouldn't be. I think that's actually something that hasn't been said that I should put out there.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we have talked about this a fair bit, so we're not going to spend much time on it, but this does just kind of confirm that, Aljo and Merab, sorry fellas, you're not going to be getting that title shot anytime soon. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say of it outside of that, but it did just break, so I did feel like throwing it in there. Just disappointing, man. Just disappointing. I've never understood his hatred towards Merab and towards the Aljo thing, because this is not the first ever time that two teammates have been in the UFC, and it's not the first ever time that this type of situation has happened. And it's not exactly like Merab has a fight style that they were dying to give him a title shot anyway. Like, when did Merab deserve a title shot? After he beat Petr Yan, when Aljo versus Sean was already scheduled. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really give a fuck what Dana says about the situation. They're kind of just working backwards from their conclusion. They were never going to give a title shot to Merab, and they kind of just want a reason to not give a title shot to Merab and Aljo. So this gives them an excuse to give it to Cheeto. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but I did see that make a lot of headlines. I did want to get your quick thoughts on that. Because it's been a while since we've seen Dana kind of be that upfront about how much he hates a fighter or a pair of fighters. So, interesting nonetheless. However, Angel, we do have some bigger news. This just broke recently. And we've actually briefly discussed this because Dana White shut it down. But Angel, you should never believe his lies. Never believe Dana White's lies. The Daily Mail came out with a report that Ronda Rousey, who recently had a hard out on her WWE contract, she decided to leave just earlier this month. There's been a report from the Daily Mail that says that she is now working on a UFC 300 return for next year. Now, this is something that we've both kind of briefly discussed, and we've kind of said, like, I could see this happening. I actually previously said, like, Ronda coming back for a full run, no chance. For UFC 300, maybe a one-off, I could see it happening. I will ask, do you buy this report at all? Do you think there's even a slight possibility that we could see Ronda Rousey back at UFC 300?
Well, for one, I think Dana already came out and said no, right? Like, it's not an actual thing they're working on, right?
He came out the night of UFC 292.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's already... And also, isn't Ronda having a kid? I could be wrong.
Ronda is not having it. She previously had a kid.
All right. I thought something like that had been going on, or so there was potentially something like... Regardless, though, I feel like if this was going to happen, it should have... If she was ever going to do a return, it was going to happen sooner. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But if she does, I mean, if they can convince her somehow, I mean, that'll be big. I mean, look, Conor coming back next year. You're telling me a UFC 300 card potentially with Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey doesn't get people going a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like Dana went ahead and shut it down, but people should just never really care or believe what Dana White says. But yeah, I mean, I'd watch it. I genuinely don't think it will happen. I think that she does have a bunch of money. She could just go into retirement if that's what she wants, but I think it makes sense. I mean, she's still only like 35, dude. So it's like, and that division that she'd be coming back to, women's 135. I mean, Angel, would you be that surprised if Ronda Rousey could step back in and just beat Juliana Pena? I wouldn't.
No. I mean, no, that division is, with all due respect, not as deep as the two other women's divisions.
Exactly. So I would, if she wants to do it, it's up to her to do it. You know what I mean? She has the ability to come back and be competitive, I think.
Ronda's what, 36 now? She's going on 37 next year.
35, yeah.
You know, like, I mean, there's not, you know what I mean? Like, the time would have been maybe, a few years, I would say maybe like, 2-3 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No,
I don't fault you for feeling that way.
You don't think so?
No, I don't fault you for feeling that way, but I also think women's MMA typically, like, they have more longevity.
I always say that too. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like if they want to capital, like if it would have been like a really good time to capitalize on it, and granted, Amanda was still around, she should have been back a little sooner. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Or this year. You know what I mean? Like this year would have been the time. You know, like right as Amanda was leaving. You know what I mean? It's like, oh damn, I just missed the. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it would have been the time. Like this was the deadline. You know, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're not necessarily wrong. I think it just comes down to how you personally feel about it. I think that she could come back, step back in, and be a huge deal regardless.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I do see your point, and she's also lost a lot of star power. I mean, I don't. A lot of WWE fans, I can tell you, didn't really give a fuck about her second run, and it wasn't very good. It was not well received. So
no, I mean her first one was really good though. Like
her first run was very well received, but then she took the time off, and her second run was pretty terribly received. So I don't know, but regardless, I think it could happen. I'd give it honestly like a solid like 30 to 40% chance of happening. I'd give it like 30% chance. Low, but still possible. You know what I mean? That's probably the best way to put it. That being said, I do think it's about time to move on because this is probably the biggest news of the day. It hasn't made all the headlines yet because it came out like literally like an hour before we started filming. Saudi Arabia has invested $100 million into the PFL. They have purchased an ownership stake. Obviously, Saudi Arabia's been throwing a lot of money around in sports, and they will now be helping fund the UFC's main competitor. There will be a Saudi Arabia PFL league specifically as well. They will also help bankroll like the entire company. The deal is worth $100 million. And yeah, man. I mean, we already know Saudi Arabia is even working with one of their main stars, Francis Ngannou, for that fight with Tyson Fury in October, dude. What do you think about this news? We've talked a lot in the past about how potentially the way for somebody to compete with the UFC would honestly be to get some fucking Saudi money, and that's what PFL is doing.
Well, the fact that they just got this money and look at it, is all this money, all this funding going directly to make like an infrastructure in Saudi Arabia? Or is this money belong to the PFL? And I'm guessing, the people who give them the money are obviously have influence in what direction it goes.
Yeah, this is $100 million straight from the Saudi Wealth Fund. That'll go directly to the PFL for their use. They will have to make it PFL, Saudi Arabia League, or at least to host more events over there.
As part of the compensation.
Correct. But this $100 million, they can essentially do what they want with it.
Well, I mean, it's going to sound, look, if they do get Bellator, this is fucking massive, dude.
Yeah.
If they did actually just get Bellator, this is probably the best case scenario. I think if in a few months here it comes out that they have this money, they got Bellator, I think that the UFC officially has an actual competitor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no question about it. That's kind of a very confident, very out there statement, but I think that it actually presents some challenges. Mm-hmm. They'll still have to build. They'll still have to, make stars. They'll still have to do a lot of things, but they officially become, in my opinion, a serious competitor. And especially if they get away from this bullshit tournament format.
This is actually the biggest news, which I just actually got. This important detail, Angel. So they are going to be investing more than $100 million. The point behind this. So here's a couple quick things I should clarify. So per the release, they obviously acquired a minority ownership stake along with this $100 million deal. So that they're going to launch PFL MENA. Middle East, North Africa is what that stands for. PFL MENA in 2024. And it's a part of the promotion's plan to launch 6 regional leagues by 2026 to get more smaller feeder leagues across the world. But Angel, here's the big thing. So that $100 million will go straight to the PFL. But in addition to that, they're also going to help underwrite a substantial amount of PFL pay-per-view events. So essentially on those big pay-per-views that they're going to do, Saudi Arabia is apparently going to pay for it and take the hit, which means they can go out there and sign. I don't want to say they have a blank check, but like Saudi Arabia is, if they're the ones paying, they can get anybody.
Look, when we know where the big thing, and I think the moment we'll know if they can compete is if they can, and this applies to if anybody comes through and does this, if they can pull a big star away from the UFC. Or
they've already done one.
But you know what I mean, though. I mean, yeah, they already done with France. But if they can sign like straight up take, like a Robert Whittaker, and I'm not even talking like easy. I'm talking like, and I'm kind of giving you like a little, like a Robert Whittaker, say like a Dustin, and then as a champ like Brandon Moreno. Like, that'd be fucking huge. And not even talking like heavy hitters like a fucking Colby Covington, Israel Adesanya, guys that do kind of at this time move the needle. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting, man. I mean, I think we've talked a lot about what can actually impact the UFC, but the UFC...
And this lawsuit, man.
Yeah, I was really about to say, between the UFC antitrust lawsuit, which we talked a lot about, where the UFC could be forced to pay out billions of dollars, which is fucking crazy, but they have that ongoing at the same time that the PFL is coming through and, like, working with Saudi Arabia, and they're getting over $100 million in funding. Like, this is exactly what I don't get. Like, Dana, like, shitting on Marab and shitting on Aljo, and even like other examples, like the Weidman one, and not letting Joe Lozon retire in Boston. And there's one like every week where Dana's beefing with somebody or shitting on somebody. It's like, man, I'd recommend you go and look at the fucking clock, man. Like, you're running out of time for you to kind of have your dictator role. You know what I mean?
When does this all blow up, Josh? What year?
Huh?
When does this all blow up? What year?
Well, the trial is expected to begin as soon as, like, so essentially the Ninth Circuit Court can go ahead and take up the UFC's appeal within the next, I want to say, 2 to 3 months. If they don't take up the appeal, the trial can start immediately. So we could be looking at a trial by the end of the year. And the PFL, they're looking for their pay-per-view series to start early next year.
And Bellator's going to have their 300 event coming up.
And Bellator has their 300 event, and I'm not sure exactly when they'll be shut down or whatever, but Bellator's time is they're a ticking too. So
2025, 2026, right? Like, that's when we're looking at these big moments.
I disagree, dude. I think we're already there. I think we're already there. Yeah,
and we just don't notice it.
I think we are in the MMA Cold War. That's what we're in right now, Angel. We're in MMA Cold War with the UFC's lawsuit.
I wonder how the Civil War is going to be.
With the UFC's lawsuit, and the PFL's recent success, and even one championship having recent success as well, it feels like we're on the verge of something really big. Now, one championship isn't even the same league as this. Like, I don't think we can properly convey to the audience and to our fans how big of a deal this is. Like, Saudi Arabia has the money to essentially do whatever they want. If PFL starts, like, gaining traction, and Saudi Arabia decides, wait a minute, this is actually going really, really well, we should throw more money at this, or we should do this or that. Like, it's off to the races. You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to be like that. Like, we saw what having one competitor, Live Golf, did for golf, dude. They forced the PGA to settle in, like, combined leagues. You know what I mean? Like, for all we know, that could be what happens. I doubt it, because UFC just had the whole deal with the WWE, and they just merged and so on and so forth. But, like, would you be that surprised if, like, PFL comes in, starts wrecking shop, and like, UFC has to, you know, sell some off to Saudi Arabia or make some sort of deal with them? I wouldn't. Because this is so much money that it's like...
I want that boom, though. Like, that's when I'll know for a fact. Like, I want that... Like, this is a big... But I want to see it, though. Like, I want to see them sign, like, 2, 3 big guys. Like, you know, they signed... You know, whoever, they pulled someone from one, they signed Fairtex, and they signed Izzy from over here, and they signed Moreno, you know, or they got Amanda out of retirement, something wild. I mean, I don't think Amanda's going to come out of retirement, because that's besides the point, but you know what I mean, like, I want to see that fuck you punch, you know what I mean? I want to see him sock the UFC in the face, and I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but I want to see that, whatever that is. Because it hasn't happened yet. We're getting there, we see the balls rolling, like, this is round 1, Josh, you know, we're feeling them out. What's going to happen in round 2, 3, 4, 5? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
Dude, exactly. I just feel like we're on the verge of it. And this is the big thing. I cannot properly convey just how massive this is for the UFC and in all of MMA in general. I mean, to have a competitor come in here, and PFL already had a bunch of investor money, which is how they were able to sign Ngannou and sign Jake Paul and sign this guy and that guy. But Saudi Arabia giving them over $100 million and specifically helping them on the pay-per-view series. Like, if it's true that they're going to take a hit on the pay-per-view series, that means that they're like, dude, like, they can go out. I mean, sky's the limit, dude. Like, literally. Like, that's who they need is the big stars for those pay-per-view events. And that's going to be their main draw. That's the thing they're trying to really, really work on. And so, hey, dude, here's a blank check to go out and sign whoever. And granted, there's not many big MMA free agents right now. But, like, if everybody knows that PFL has $100 million to spend, and you're somebody who's looking down the barrel of like, okay, well, I could re-up with the UFC for 110 and 110, or I can take my chances, I think more and more people are probably going to take their chances. But that's just my feeling. I don't have anything to guess on. And obviously, we still have to wait and see. This is very much wait and see. This is very, very bad news for the UFC, but we still have to wait and see how things go.
And also this money could just get to waste and not be capitalized on, and everything could just
of course, for them. Yeah. I mean, PFL's made some bad decisions in the past. Who knows? They can make more of them. So, nonetheless, I think we should go ahead and move on because Angel, EA UFC 5, EA Sports UFC 5. We've seen some teasers. We've seen some trailers. We got a bunch of news that broke. On the cover of the game will be the great Alexander Volkanovski and Valentina Shevchenko, but that's not it, dude. We got some more details. Fyodor Emelianenko, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson are going to be pre-order bonuses. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua serve that purpose for UFC 4. But also, dude, this game's going to be rated M for mature, first time ever in the series, and it's going to be slated for release in October. A lot of details, but give me your anticipation level for the game, man.
I mean, look, I've played 2 of the UFC games ever, and I mean, they've all been just alright. I know they're going to have like actual skill-based matchmaking, which I think can be a good thing for kind of newer players or just anybody who kind of want to come kind of play off and on casually, you know, and not have to like get on and just get your ass kicked by a fucking Max Holloway, man.
Yeah.
So I think there's some positive to it. And as far as the cover people, I mean, I'm not. Are you surprised? Like, come on, Josh. Who else are they gonna put on there?
Well, yeah, I am pretty surprised about Valentina though. Could you imagine if she loses again?
Yeah, I mean, Josh, were they gonna put on the bantamweight goat, Aljamain Sterling? Come on, Josh. Like,
yeah, dude. Actually, it was supposed to be Aljamain before he left. It was going to be Aljamain and Valentina. They were going to be on the cover.
Dude, did you imagine if they would have done, like, they had it ready, and it was actually, they were like, okay, well, we have 2 options. So if Aljamain wins, we'll do Aljamain, but if Sean wins, we got to have Sean cover ready.
I'm actually surprised they didn't put Sean on the cover, dude. I think that would have made so much sense.
It would have been the time, but even the special edition is Izzy.
Yeah, correct. I did say that. The special edition of the game is Izzy, but, yeah, dude, I'm psyched for this. Fight Night Champion was the greatest Fight Night game in my opinion. Although round 2 was pretty great, round 3 was pretty great. And that game was rated M. UFC 5 being rated M, I got high hopes, dude. Like, you know, like let's have some fucking fun, you know? Like let's make a crazy fucking story. Let's have a crazy story mode that just doesn't make any sense like Fight Night Champion. Let's fucking do it. You know what I mean? Let's have some fun. I'm actually really hyped for this. I'm really, really hyped. Granted, it's only been just a couple of small announcements, but finding out that it was rated M, you know, Fedor gonna be in the game, dude. Like, what the fuck? Like
Muhammad Ali.
Exactly. Like, this is gonna be crazy. So I'm very excited.
They announced there was another person. It was
Mike
Fedor,
Tyson?
Ali, Tyson. Was there another one? I felt like there was another one in there.
Not to my knowledge, but.
I'm sure they'll have like Bruce Lee in there like they have in the past.
Probably. Yeah.
Dana and Joe, you know, which those was always like weird ones, you know?
Yeah.
But hey, I'll buy it. I might have to dust off the old Xbox and put it in there, you know, because all I play is on the computer now.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm pretty psyched for it, man. I'm very, very excited for it. But, yeah, man, that's about all the details on it, because all this just came out from a certain report. They haven't even released a trailer yet confirming everything, but, anyways, we do got to talk about it. Alexander Usyk, Dana Dubois. We did not preview this fight because I didn't think he was going to be competitive. Instead, it actually was. Not only was it competitive, there was controversy. Alexander Usyk wins scoring a jab knockout in the 9th round. However, previously in the fight in round 5, there was a low blow, or was it, from Daniel Dubois, which gave Usyk 5 minutes to recover. Usyk actually took 3 minutes to recover, 3 minutes and 45 seconds. He ended up coming back, dropping him twice to get the win. What did you think about the controversy? Did you see the fight? Did you see the low blow? What did you think of the situation, man?
You know, I actually did see, like, by the way, did you see both angles? I have a question about that, because I saw both angles. Because there was one angle that was floating around, which was the main one, the one they showed on the broadcast.
I went straight up fucking JFK declassified, right? I looked at every single angle.
Did you actually? Like, I don't even know if you're joking right there or not.
Yeah, I did. I was literally just, jokes aside, I did look at every single angle. So yeah.
Man, I kind of.
I wasn't studying it like the Zapruder film, but I did look at a lot of angles.
I mean, in the moment, I thought it was, but then I went ahead and then I had funny enough, I listened to a podcast and they kind of broke down the rules behind and there's like some technicality to it where it's like, there's some sort of discretion to the ref and all of that, and look, it's a whole thing. I thought it was low, but according to some sort of technicality, it actually wasn't low.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, I think I thought it was a clear, like, low blow. I thought pretty clearly, like, it was, look, it's another thing of, like, what do you even consider a low blow in boxing? Like what you said, like, would that be a low blow in MMA? Probably not, but because everybody in fucking boxing hikes their shorts up to their fucking, to their fucking chest. Like, like sometimes it's really, really hard to tell. And I think in a heavyweight championship fight, something like that, you definitely give the benefit of the doubt. Because as mad as people were about them calling it a low blow, could you imagine if the heavyweight championship of the world changed fucking hands on a shot like that looked like, even if you think it's a low blow, it's not like that's easy to call in the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I had no problem with it. Do you think there will be a rematch? Obviously, Dubois has already come out and appealed the fight. Would you like to see a rematch next?
I don't think they'll do that. I don't see much reason in it.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, for myself. I mean, Usyk still took care of business later on. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not like they went to a decision. He wasn't awarded like a knockdown point that would have like swung the round. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I hear you. And that's partially why I don't really care as much too. I mean, if Usyk could climb himself off the canvas, in 3 minutes and come back and easily dominate and knock you out with a jab, just a couple rounds later, it's, like, it is what it is. But to kind of stick on boxing, this is actually our last topic of the day. I thought this would be a fun one. Because 6 years ago this week, Angel, it was Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, one of the biggest fights in boxing, and not just boxing, combat sports history. Still to date, the second highest selling pay-per-view of all time. 6 years on from the fight, man. We're both Conor fans, and I know that we both watched this fight live. What do you remember from it, man? What can you take from it, and kind of give me your memories of that fight 6 years on?
God, that was a wild night. I mean, it's been so long. I mean, what year was that again?
That was 6 years, 2017. August of 2017.
How was life at the time in 2017? Well, we were in high school.
That is correct. Yeah.
Hated life. No, I was kidding. Man, I'm just trying to think of how the world was at that time for me, and it's one of those like there's a lot of moments like this for me in my life where I'm like, I don't think I appreciated it enough for what it was. Like, I think I understood the magnitude of it, but not as much as I do now looking back at it. Mm-hmm. Insanity. I mean, one of the wild. I think it was the start of all these. I mean, that might have been the origin of all these crazy crossovers, Josh. Like, that might have been the start of it right there.
I think so. Yeah.
I think that started this whole. In some weird way, even the YouTube boxing shit to an extent, right? I don't think it was influenced by that, but that was it was within that as well, like it all kind of snowballed and kept going. Mm-hmm. to what we have today.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I mean, that 6 years on from that night, dude. I don't really have a lot to say about the fight itself because we've talked about the fight itself so much over the years. Just coming up here and there. But yeah, dude. I mean, I don't think we're ever gonna see anything like that again. I mean, obviously we're gonna have Tyson Fury, excuse me, and Francis Ngannou. But the star power, like Floyd and Conor, we're never gonna have two stars of that magnitude meet ever again. I don't think. Because it's really, Floyd wasn't the best boxer on the planet at that point. He was already, on the verge of retirement. He already retired, I believe, twice before that. And Conor wasn't, Conor, as good as he was, I think everybody kind of knew that he had a receipt coming back whenever he was going to face Habib anyway. But, it was like, it was not the best versus the best, but the star power, dude. I'll never forget the Canada press conference. The Canada press conference where Conor and McGregor basically went out there and did a stand-up routine for like 10 minutes, was insane. I remember sitting I'll never forget where I was when the fight was announced. I was just literally sitting, just pulled up the Quick Trip, got something to drink, sat in the car, saw that, Conor, I think posted, I'm fighting Floyd Mayweather, and I think he might have been Floyd Mayweather Sr. as a troll or something. He put up a troll post first before actually announcing the fight. But yeah, dude, just hilarity, dude. Yeah, 6 years later, pretty crazy, man. It's still crazy to think about, and it's still the second biggest fight of all time. So, yeah, man, pretty crazy to think about.
Is only ahead of that Manny and Floyd?
Correct, and barely. It was barely in front of it. I think they sold 4.6. I think Conor and Floyd sold 4.4.
Wow.
So it was just barely. But yeah, man, not gonna see anything like that again. Any closing thoughts on that, or anything else you want to talk about, man?
No, nothing specific. I'm excited because there's a lot. I think there's a decent bit on the line for this week for these fights. I'm excited to come back next week. I don't even know what we're coming back to. Are we on a pay-per-view, Josh? Fuck, I don't even know. Yeah. UFC 293, probably the best pay-per-view of the year.
Up there.
Right? At least, it has to be at least top two.
And it's not number 2.
But Josh, you know what is exciting? This will probably be the first pay-per-view, or not the first, this is probably one. This will be the first pay-per-view we've seen each other in a while for. We'll actually be watching this one in person.
Yeah, I'm really excited, man. I'm psyched.
I don't have it confirmed, but I'm assuming we probably will. I just need to talk to everybody about that. But, we'll be seeing each other more often.
For sure. That'll only lead to better shows, too, so you guys
right?
should be...
Better moments, too. We might have to do something. Imagine if we did, right after shows, Josh, live, right then and there, we just start recording with everybody in the room. What were you guys' thoughts? God.
Anyways, man. Yeah, that'll be fun. But yeah, coming back to a pay-per-view, always fun. And I hope you guys enjoy the show, man. We've been, as always, been doing very, very well on YouTube, and we appreciate that so much. And guys will keep on supporting the show. I'm at Josh Evanoff on Twitter. He's at Angel_01 at Courtside Sound for all things related to the show. If you guys enjoyed, peace and butt grease. Mouse click.